2017 was without a doubt a fantastic year for games. Particularly on the PlayStation 4, Sony knocked it out of the park with exclusive after exclusive. And we've talked extensively about the quality of the games from that year. What I'd like to do here is to introduce you or remind you of some games in the back catalogue that might be worth a first or a second look. All of these are from my library of games and ones that I've enjoyed very much in the past. First up, as you can see, is Borderlands 2. This is the remaster of the PlayStation 3 original. You buy it as a Handsome Jack collection and it comes with Borderlands 2, all of its DLC, the pre-sequel and all of its DLC. The pre-sequel is good, but Borderlands 2 is incredible. It is beautiful to look at with this fabulously weird, cartoony, cel-shaded look. It has a cast of insane characters. The NPCs, both the enemies and the people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis as you go through the game are hilarious. Beautifully acted, beautifully drawn, and entirely insane. The game itself is rude and silly and unashamedly mental. You can play as various different classes of character, from commandos with gun turrets to sirens that trap people in balls of energy, through to the two DLC classes, the Psycho and the Necromancer, with the massive robot that she can spawn. It is absolutely wonderful. It can be played solo, so you can play through the entirety of the campaign on your own, but also you can play with 3 other people, either online or on a sofa using 4-player split screen. Now, games just don't offer that anymore. It is phenomenal. I have played this to death over the years. I've played it on the PlayStation 3, and when the PlayStation 4 version came out, you can import your save from the PlayStation 3 over to the PlayStation 4. So if you've got an old Borderlands 2 PlayStation 3 save knocking around somewhere, you can pick up where you left off. It is loud, it is brash, it is stupid, and without a doubt has one of the best antagonists in gaming for a long time. Handsome Jack is crass and funny and violent and horrible. You will love and hate Jack. He is so entertaining, and you just love the fact that you eventually get to shoot him in the face. If you like first-person shooters, if you like first-person shooters with RPG elements in them, with a real cast of incredibly interactive characters, do you know what? Just get it. It's not that expensive on PSN right now. It is a huge amount of content, and most importantly, it is a huge amount of fun. Next up is Don't Starve. I first came across Don't Starve when it was on Alpha on the PC, played it then, and it was one of the first PlayStation Plus games for the PlayStation 4. I think it was January 2014. It looks all cute and lovely, but it is in fact a hard-as-nails survival game. You have an ever-expanding cast of characters that you can have with different abilities and different strengths and weaknesses. They are dropped in the middle of a hostile environment with no tutorial, no clue, no nothing. You had to figure everything out for yourself, and most importantly, don't die. And this is a game in which you will die repeatedly, over and over again, which sounds like it might be a pretty uninteresting gameplay loop, but just like with the Souls games, every single death will teach you something. You will learn more, so death is actually part of the cycle of learning within the game, and you will get better at the game as a result. Now, it's got DLC now, so you've got Land of the Giants and Shipwrecked, which will give new environments and new challenges, making it even harder, which, you know, isn't very nice, but there we are. Also, it now comes with a 2-player cooperative, Don't Starve Together, which you download separately. But if you like survival games, if you like a steep challenge and a really good learning curve, if you like, you know, this kind of cutesy fun, I mean, it is a very funny game. It's got a lot of character and a lot of charm to it. If you like this kind of stuff, Don't Starve is a great game for that. There's lots of variety in gameplay, and you will learn, you will get better, and the rewards that you get from learning and getting better are significant. a sense of achievement from actually getting through the first winter. You know, to begin with, you will die on day 4 or 5 or 6. Then you might get to day 12. Then you might get to day 20. And eventually, you're on day 93, 94, 100. And you've got farms. You've got fridges. You've got armor. You've got magic. You've got all sorts of things that are going to help you survive and complete the game. And there is a completion to the game. If you want to follow a story mode, there is a story mode to follow. But the most fun part of the game is simply trying not to starve. Check it out. It is charming, it is witty, it's hard as nails, and it is absolutely brilliant. Another game that's worthy of your attention is the PlayStation 3 remaster of Metro Last Light. It's set in a post-apocalyptic Russia, and the protagonist is trying to get back home after getting lost, but also there's a subplot about the potential of saving the world by interacting with an alien. Now, I didn't play the original game, and I don't think it's absolutely necessary to. There are some recaps that you can look at which will tell you where things are. It's a tightly scripted, linear first-person shooter, but the levels themselves are not particularly linear. It does have a very good stealth mechanic, so there is the opportunity to stealth your way through some levels, and you know that is dependent on the amount of light that's around, so you can snuff out lamps and candles so you can sneak better, or you can go all out with some really nice weighty weapons. And because we're talking about post-apocalyptic here, those weapons look like they've been bolted together by bits and pieces and have some really eclectic ways of moving and working, which adds real weight and real purpose to the game. Also, the graphics are stunning, the voice acting is excellent, and the whole environment reeks of decay and humanity basically on the edge of destruction. It is really good. It has some nice kind of political elements to it as well. Different factions that are trying to survive in different ways. Artificial intelligence of characters that you might be interacting with is very good because you're not always on your own in this game. The monsters, yeah, they look pretty gross. Mutated rats and spiders and stuff like that. Pretty nasty. But also the human antagonists and the ones that will help you out are imbued with real character and real care in their design. It is well worth a go. If you like first-person shooters and you like, you know, the post-apocalyptic setting, this is an absolutely essential purchase. Divinity Original Sin is a game that I'm playing right now, and it is a tactical role-playing game. But it's so much more than that. The combat is about using the 4 playable characters that you have. It's about positioning, it's about understanding how their skills are useful, how they interact with each other to overcome the monsters, the aggressors that you come across in the game. And it's hard, this game. It is not an easy RPG. One of the things that make it hard is the fact that there is no grinding in this game. The game does not have random encounters. As you go through the environment and kill enemies, they do not respawn. Once you've killed them, they're dead. In fact, you'll see their dead bodies strewn all over the battlefield if you return to it. You know, permanently, they never go. So you can't do the normal RPG trope of, I'm feeling a bit under-leveled for this, let's go and stack a few levels on top so I can actually manage what I'm doing. That's not going to happen in this game. So you do have to be very mindful of how you follow the paths, your completion of side quests, to make sure that when you do come up against story-based enemies, that you're at the appropriate level. And you will always be, if you get as far as you can within the game, you'll always be at the appropriate level to have a fight, but it will always be a challenge because you're never just going to walk through it all. So that is a really nice mechanic. It's not going to be easy. You are going to have to work for it. Also, the cast of characters is absolutely brilliant. There is a lot of humour in the game. There's lots of a sense of fun throughout a lot of the dialogue. The 2 main characters that you have, by the way, it can be played cooperatively. And if you play it with someone else, the 2 main characters that are in the game, well, they might have an argument. They might disagree. So if you're playing with someone else, that argument is settled by using this rock, paper, scissors mini game. So I'm currently arguing with an NPC, but if I was playing with a friend and we wanted to go in different directions as far as the story was concerned, we'd have a rock, paper, scissors fight to decide which way it went. This mechanic also works when you're playing in a single player. If you do want to have a bit of fun, and particularly if you get to a point where you're not sure which way to go, you're not sure which is the right way to go, you can actually then force an argument between the two main characters and let rock, paper, scissors decide the next step for you. So it adds a little bit of randomness. There are huge numbers of ways of creating classes, you know, different weapon types, different magic types, which means you can really construct a very bespoke group of characters. You can take someone who is a heavy armor specialist and have them summoning spiders or shooting fireballs or whatever. There is a huge level of customization. This is, you know, a Dungeons and Dragons type of game. It is very much about stats. It's very much about random dice rolls, understanding elemental weaknesses. So there's lots of micromanagement in it as well. When you're not in combat, the game itself is great fun to play. It's an interesting world to explore. Side quests can be serious, but also can be incredibly stupid. I've got one at the moment that is about the were-sheep. I haven't seen what it's like, but there's a were-sheep. I also had to take a cat, because you can speak to animals with one skill, and there was a cat who wanted to marry above his station, and we had to find a nice rich collar for him so he could marry the cat of his dreams. There is lots of fun to be had in this game. It is sprawling, it is epic, it is hard as nails, but if you like strategic role-playing games, and it's my favourite genre, I love the strategy role-playing genre, there's another one coming up. It is absolutely worth your time. It is fun, it is hard, it is just a lovely slice of quality role-playing. A complete change of pace now, actually very literally, in Everyone's Gone to the Rapture. I adored this game when it came out. It was so intriguing, so interesting, you know, unkindly termed a walking simulator. It is a beautiful slice of atmosphere and a really interesting story to discover. I mean, it is a beautiful, it is one of the most graphically impressive games that is available at the moment. It recreates a 1980s version of Great Britain. I was alive in Great Britain in the 1980s. I remember it very well. And you go into this, you've no idea who you are or what you are. You're never introduced to yourself as a character. You seem just to be an observer. And you go into this village that has, you know, like Mary Celeste, everyone has disappeared, and you come across these representations of the people who used to live in the village and begin to hear their stories and unravel what went on. And it's a very personal piece of writing, because yes, there is a central theme of discovering where everyone has gone and why they're, you know, these lights are present actually in the village. But it's also a very human story about finding out how people deal with grief, or they deal with difficult situations. It is beautifully voice acted. I mean, it really is. The scripting is incredibly clever. And it draws you through. You want to discover, you want to learn more, because you begin to care about the characters that you're interacting with. And the environment itself is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. A great piece of design. Also, the soundtrack for this game is stunning, absolutely stunning. It really does give the right atmosphere, the right emotion to what's going on. You know, it's very, it's choral, it's ephemeral, it's absolutely glorious. And the more you learn about what happened in Yorton and the surrounding areas, the more you want to learn. It is a beautifully crafted, clever game of exploration and discovery set in beautiful graphics. Now, if you are someone whose idea of a fabulous game is big guns, explosions, this is probably not the game for you. But if you are interested in storytelling, in character, in atmosphere, this is well worth a punt. It's about 3-4 hours to complete, although there is some replayability because you're bound to miss some things. But it is an absolutely compelling tale that is uplifting and tragic in equal measure. And if this has intrigued you at all, I would strongly recommend a download, because it is an exceptional piece of game design and a wonderful experience. I haven't played many of Telltale's games. I played the first season of Walking Dead, the whole of Tales from the Borderlands, but one that really grabbed me was The Wolf Among Us. Based on a series of comic books. As a prequel to those comic books, it dealt with fairy tale characters living in human guise in New York. So you come across the Crooked Man, you come across the Big Bad Wolf, the Three Little Pigs, Toad from Wind in the Willows, Jersey Devil, Bloody Mary, Tweedledee, Tweedledum, Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, all embroiled in a murder case that's being solved by Bigby, who is the Big Bad Wolf. It is adult, it is violent, it's 18 rated, and it is quite brilliant. It is beautifully voice acted, and as with all Telltale games, you've got choice-based narrative that will change the way in which the story unfolds. Lots of quick time events as well, but it is really compelling because despite the utterly fantastical setting, it is grounded with a real sense of realism, of character, that makes the slightly fantastical elements make sense. So you don't feel a disconnect between the gameplay and the gritty and the grimy feeling of this part of New York that these characters live in. There is no disconnect between that and the story that's unfolding, because it is told very cleverly and it's very compelling. It is well worth a look. If you've liked the Telltale games in the past, I would highly recommend The Wolf Among Us. In fact, from what I've played of the others and what I've seen of some of the others, it is a cut above the rest in terms of narrative. It is also an awful lot of fun as well. There is humour to be found in it. I like games that don't take themselves too seriously. It does understand that the conceit is a little bit silly, so it does play into that. I particularly like Toad from Wind in the Willows, who's a Cockney slumlord, which is, you know, he's just hilarious. It's fantastic. So if you've liked other Telltale offerings and you haven't tried out The Wolf Among Us, I would highly recommend it. It is well worth your time. It is compelling and interesting, with great voice acting, with great storytelling, and there are whispers, and I hope this is true, that a sequel might be on its way. So if you like these choice-based story-driven games, you can't go far wrong with The Wolf Among Us. The last entry on this list is another PlayStation 3 remaster and is one of my all-time favourite games. That's Valkyria Chronicles. Tactical role-playing games or strategy role-playing games, it's my favourite genre. I've always enjoyed them right back when I first experienced them with Vandal Hearts back on the PlayStation 1, a game I still have and still play every so often on my PS2. Valkyria Chronicles is kind of an alternate history, if you like. It's set in an alternative version of Europe and an alternative version of the Second World War. And the small province of Gallia has been invaded by a larger force, and they are trying to defend themselves. And what you have is, instead of highly trained, crew-cut soldiers, you've got a cast of characters who are fighting because they're defending their homelands. There's school teachers, there's bakers, there's farmers, there's cabaret singers. These are ordinary people who have been driven into extraordinary circumstances in defence of their homes. So there is a beautiful humanity that runs throughout the game, which is really an exploration of how war affects ordinary people. Now, as with all RPGs, there are different classes. So you have scouts, you have shock troopers, you have engineers, lancers, and you have snipers. Those 5 classes do have upgrade trees, which will branch in 2 directions for each of them. That means that you have a tactical decision to make in who to deploy where, because they have their own strengths and weaknesses. Lancers can't counterattack, but at the same time have the only weapons capable of taking down the armoured vehicles for infantry. Shock troopers can't run very far, but they can take a lot of damage and they can deliver a lot of damage. Scouts have a range of movement, a very wide range of movement, and can spot enemies even when they're in cover. But they're very squishy and don't do much damage. Engineers can repair the tanks that you can drive around in the games. They can defuse mines. They can rebuild sandbags. And you have also the snipers, which, you know, hit things from a long way away. So what you have is lots of tactical options, and you will be taking a large number of combatants into the theatre of war. You're generally working with between 7 and maybe even up to 12 different units. So there are some real tactical decisions to make about who you take along with you. You capture bases, and when you capture a base, you can then swap out some of your members. So if shock troopers were good for half of the level, you capture a base, you might then want to swap them out for some snipers. So you have many tactical abilities and tactical decisions to make throughout the game. Flanking options, setting up crossfires, setting up ambushes, all of these things are tactical decisions you have to make within a beautifully watercolor world. Now, it is so beautifully designed. It is a joy to play. If you make a mistake, you will be punished for it, so you have to think very hard about your actions. It's not an easy game, and levels or battles can take 45 minutes to an hour to complete. This is not a game that is light on, on content. Also, between skirmishes, between battles, you have a story that's unfolding. It is hamstrung slightly by some over quirky Japaneseness, but actually the theme of it is very compelling. I say ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, how war affects the ordinary person. Also, it's got themes of ethnic cleansing, it's got themes of racism running through it as well. It's actually got a very powerful narrative that is incredibly affecting. So if you haven't played Valkyria Chronicles before, it's one I would so strongly recommend. It is beautiful. The first hour and a half, you've got to power through the first hour and a half, but once you actually get proper command of your tank, once you get into the actual battles rather than kind of the tutorial levels at the beginning, it is a game that has a huge amount of depth and one that I would absolutely recommend you give a go. So there's my list of 7 gems in my library that I think deserve a first or a second look after you've neglected them with the fantastic games that came out in 2017. If you've been with me this far, you've obviously liked the video, so please give it a like, share it, subscribe to the channel on the button that's popped up right now for more content about the beloved PlayStation 4. I'll see you soon, take care, and have a fantastic gaming week.